everyone. Today we would be dealing with the part asexual reproduction in living organisms. So first thing we'll see what is reproduction. Reproduction is the process by which new individual is formed from the existing one. So how does it happen? It happens by two ways. One, it is asexual reproduction. Second, bisexual reproduction. So what is asexual reproduction? In the case of asexual reproduction, the new individual is formed from only one parent. There is no involvement of gametes and neither there is union of these gametes. Therefore, it is also called as uniparental type of reproduction, where only by the process of mitotic cell division, this process of asexual reproduction occurs. The offsprings which are produced, they are exactly the copy as that of their parent, and therefore there is absence of genetic recombination in them, and therefore they are also called as clones. So what are the different types of asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms? First, binary fission. It occurs in prokaryotes and protists like amoeba, paramecium, and euglena. It mostly occurs during favorable conditions. In the case of amoeba, you will see that this parent organism divides into two halves and each one develops into the new offsprings. So, therefore, the two new offsprings are clones of the parent one. There are three types of binary fission: simple, transverse, and longitudinal. In the case of amoeba, there is simple binary fission where two daughter cells are formed which have different shapes. While in the case of paramecium, the parent organism divides transversely to form two new individuals. While in case of euglena, it divides longitudinally to form two new offsprings. In the case of multiple fission, mostly it occurs again in amoeba, but this time in unfavorable conditions where the formation of pseudopodia is stopped, they cannot move, and due to the lack of food, they form a protective covering outside the plasma membrane, which is called as cyst. Once the cyst is developed, the nuclei divides multiple times and form many nuclei. These nuclei is surrounded by this nuclei is surrounded by cytoplasm, and once the parent organism is filled with many such daughter cells, they are released out in the environment in the form of amoebulae, and each of this amoebulae develops into a new individual. In the case of budding, which occurs mostly in unicellular yeast, the parent nuclei divides into two nuclei. The cytoplasm bulges out and the nuclei gets deposited in this bulge. Now this structure is called as bud, and this bud separates out from the parent yeast and develops as a new individual in the form of daughter yeast. So these are the three types of asexual reproduction which you see mostly in unicellular organisms. While in the case of multicellular organisms, asexual reproduction occurs by the process like fragmentation, which mostly occurs in Spirogyra and Cycon. So in the case of Spirogyra, when there is favorable conditions, good amount of food is available in the environment, they take up to their maximum and develop number of fragments. During unfavorable conditions, they get converted into number of fragments, and each of these fragments develop into a new individual. While in the case of Cycon, accidentally when number of fragments are produced, each of these fragments develop into a new individual. In case of planarians, mostly they reproduce by the process of regeneration, where these planarians divide into mostly two equal halves, and each of the part is regenerated back, and therefore the two new individuals are formed. Budding is mostly seen in the case of Hydra. During favorable conditions, they grow up to their maximum, And when there is unfavorable conditions, they start developing a small structure which is called as bud. This bud develops to its maximum by taking the nutrition from the parent one, and once when there is again favorable condition, the daughter hydra gets separated from the parent hydra and develops as a new individual. Next, vegetative propagation, which is only seen in plants. The vegetative parts like root, stem, leaf, and bud is involved in this type of reproduction. What happens in them? In the case of potatoes, eyes are developed. Eyes are developed. These eyes develop into stem, which give rise to a new individual. In the case of bryophyllum, on these margins, buds are developed, and this bud gives rise to a new individual. In the case of fungus like mucor, spores are formed. The filamentous body gives rise to the sporangium, which contains number of spores. During favorable conditions, the sporangium breaks off, spores are released into the environment, and each spore forms a new colony which develops into a new fungus. So these are the different types of asexual reproduction which occurs in unicellular and multicellular organisms. The next type, that is sexual type of reproduction, will be covered by me in the next session. Thank you and all the best for your exams.